Hi, my name is Carin, and I'm part of God's Army, and this is my testimony. I grew up in a broken home. It was mostly myself, my mother, and my brother. My mom was a single mother working two, even three jobs at a time, plus going to school. When my brother and I were not in school and needed care, our grandparents took care of us until our mother got home. I never really had a close relationship with Jesus. When I was in elementary school, my mom, I, and brother moved into an apartment complex. I became friends with a girl that went to a Bible study class every Wednesday night. My mom would allow me to go, so I started getting to know God. When I was about 10, my mom decided to start dating my brother's father. They got married, and he had a friend that would come visit us. He was an alcoholic. I grew close to him, and I started calling him uncle. Well, time went by, and he started doing inappropriate things to me. I tried telling my mom, and she didn't believe me. Then one day I came home, and mom was gone. My stepdad told my brother and I that him and our mother were getting a divorce, and he was keeping my brother, and that I could stay or go with my mother. I went with my mother. When I was 12 or so, I started misbehaving and was out of control with anger. My mother put me in a mental health hospital to get help. It worked for a little bit. While I was still going to Bible study as well. Then my life turned upside down when my mom got back with my brother's dad, who ended up being abusive mentally, verbally, and physically. I no longer wanted to be at home. I acted out at school and would have to stay after school in detention. After all that, I broke the law one time. I broke the law, and the cops got called, and I went to juvie. I would pray and beg for God to remove me from my mom's care and place me with my grandparents. Well, that never happened, so I would start getting into more trouble. And one night, I broke my brother's leg, and I had so much anger, I even put hands on my grandfather. My family called the cops, and I was arrested. I started praying and got back into going to church when I was in juvie. When I went to court and the judge sentenced me, I was happy to go home. The judge released me after a month. My mom stood up and asked the judge if she could speak. He allowed her to, and the words that came out of her mouth broke my heart. She told the judge she feared for her and my brother's life and asked to place me into foster care. Not only was I angry and hurt by my mother's choice, I was angry with God that whole time after all the praying and pleading to send me home that I would change if he made it that the judge would allow me to go home. That day when I found out I wasn't wanted, I got mad at God for allowing my mom to say those things and to the judge for placing me into foster care. So I got released from juvie. I was sitting in the home called Epic, which is where kids go before being placed into the foster home that they spend their time when they're in foster care. My counselor that was assigned to me told me my aunt was going to take me in, so I wouldn't be in foster care. I was upset, but not as much, since I was going to be with my family instead of strangers. Years went by. I grew up, as well as growing up. I was growing further and further away from God. Then July 2006 came and I made the worst decision of my life. I was 18. I met a guy online. We started talking and we agreed to meet. We flirted, talked inappropriately, and kissed. About a month later, I found out he was only 13. He had told me he was 16. His mother passed. His mother pressed charges a few days before Thanksgiving. The cops showed up and arrested me because there was a warrant for my arrest for rape of a child. After a few days, I went to court and the judge set bail. I went back to my cell and bawled my eyes out. Then the guard came in and said, "Church." No one else was around, but I literally felt someone pick me up and carry me to the room where there were two people from a church. I stayed after church and talked to them. They gave me a Bible. I started reading it and would go to church Bible study, anything the guards would say church, Bible study, or anything to do with the word God. I started getting close to God again. I went to court and found out I was looking at a felony and prison. It was about 7 years I could be looking at doing. After I spoke with the judge and court was over, my attorney said he would meet with me in a few weeks. Before court, I met with the lawyer. He had a plea bargain. And it sounded good, so I called my mother to tell her. She said, "Don't sign anything. I am paying for a personal lawyer for you." The next day, I met my new lawyer, and she got me released. And the best part is it was just in time for Christmas. After several meetings and evaluations and prayers, my lawyer was able to talk to the prosecuting office, and they lowered the charge to a misdemeanor. It took roughly 7 months. I also got really heavy into church. I even sang a song at the talent show at the church I was attending. I have had my struggles in staying close to God, but this time around has been the best. These are just a few scenarios in my life where God has done work in my life. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and God bless you all.